Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fierce, Focused and Feminine podcast. I'm Davindra Ojala, the Lightworker Coach, and this is a space where I have real, raw, and naked conversations with fiercely heart-powered women, courageous women, soulful women. So thank you for joining us today. Now, Fierce Focused Feminine is a soulful sisterhood and a community where we believe every woman deserves to know her true power, her true worth, and her potential, and never have to live in fear of it. So today I'm inviting you to celebrate women with us, to come on an adventure and play. So get yourself nice and comfortable. Perhaps go get yourself a cup of tea, a vegan hot chocolate, a vegan smoothie, whatever you want to, and kick back, relax, because you're going to really receive the benefits here by really surrendering, letting go, and listening through your heart. So on today's show, I have a really, really special guest from Fierce, Focused and Feminine. She's inspiring, she's playful, she's fun, she brings joy to our community, and I 100% know that after this cool connection today, you are going to walk away feeling so much more empowered and inspired to create the change that you really need to in your life in reference to your health and in so many ways. So let's shout out big woohoo to Selena Marsden. Selena, thank you so much for joining us on FFF today.
Thank you so much, Davindra. It's such a pleasure to be here. It was such a lovely welcome. It was beautiful. So thank you. Thank you. I will just say it's my first podcast that I've done. Yeah.
Brilliant.
And privileged to be here.
How does that feel? This is your first ever podcast. So how are you feeling right now?
Well, I mean, it feels really exciting, and I honestly would not have believed a year ago that I would be doing something like this. I really wouldn't have. I was in so much fear of stepping up and stepping, I guess, into my light. I kind of knew I had something there, but I was really scared of being seen. So this is, it's a really big step.
Beautiful. That's absolutely wonderful, because really what I think the audience is going to get out of our session today is really seeing the power of transformation. And when a woman really leans into her fear, faces her shadows, and chooses to allow her light to guide her and really become that woman that the divine has always been leading her to being out in the world. And I think you're a really shining example for all of the FFF ladies right now. So we're going to play, we're going to have some fun, and I've got some really juicy questions for you. So let's start with gratitude, because of course anybody on the self-development journey, we love gratitude. So Selena, where you are today in life, what would you say are the three greatest things, the biggest things that you feel so grateful to have or be a part of in your life right now?
Well, there's a huge amount, actually. And that's not to say that all my life is easy right now, because that's not true at all. But I would say the biggest thing for me is that I've learnt to feel. And, you know, that's huge when you've lived a long time within your protection and within your armor. And so
Did you say learn to feel?
To feel, yes.
Good. I love this. I knew we would dive straight in with you. Brilliant.
Yeah, so I think that is something, and that's painful, right? That's really painful at times. And, you know, there are days where, you know, sometimes I think, oh my goodness, I started this journey. But I think when you've lived a life where you've not felt, and that was absolutely me for many years, that was my own protection. I stopped feeling. I think I'm grateful every day, even when I feel pain. I'm really grateful that I feel. And yeah, that's, I would say never, ever, no matter how hard things get, ever want to go back to that place.
Yes. Yes, I love that. I think that is such a golden nugget. And I've interviewed several people and I've never heard anybody say, I am grateful because I feel. That's so, so powerful. So thank you so much. And I really want the audience just to take a moment to really acknowledge that, because we presume we'd be grateful for things that are external. But this really shows that the power, really, what we're really looking for is what's within us. It's being able to feel that makes us human. So, Selena, to some people, I suspect that's going to sound a bit odd. Did you know you couldn't feel? Or when was the wake up call? When did you suddenly go, I used to feel, and now I think I've stopped, and now I think I can start to feel? I'm curious to what has resulted in you now sitting here saying, I'm so grateful. One of my top things right now is feeling. What was the wake up?
Well, I think in terms of when I stopped feeling, I can't exactly put a pinpoint that. I think it becomes a subconscious thing. And I think for me, I went through quite a lot of trauma when I was in my teens. I emerged in my 20s as a very different person. I actually emerged in I was working in a corporate world for 10 years. I was high achieving. I didn't even look feminine. I mean, I really didn't. I hid myself completely. I didn't wear makeup. I had short hair. I was overweight. I just and so I lived like that for a very long time, very in control. And but I didn't realize that. I didn't know that. That was just that was as a subconscious. And it wasn't until after I had my children. And I think as a woman, you often have children, and beforehand, everything is ahead of you. Everything you're living in, what I'm going to become, what my life's going to be. You have all this hope and dream. And I remember waking up post my second child, so I must have been mid-30s then. They're now in their teens, 2 boys. And I remember looking in the mirror, and I remember just thinking, I don't know who this person is looking back at me. Who am I? And I remember being very, I guess I felt, I was quite angry actually, I think, with the world. I remember being exhausted. I was like a wilted flower. I literally felt like I didn't know who I was. I'd aged. And I remember being out one day shopping with a baby and a toddler, and I was slightly irritated by something in the shop that had happened. And I remember then witnessing a woman who was considerably older than me. I mean, she was probably more like the age I am now, or maybe early 50s. And she was very kind of bitter and cold and angry kind of woman. I remember seeing this woman in this interaction with somebody in the shop, and I just thought, I'm becoming like that. And I don't want to be like that. That's not who I want to become. And I think that really, I went home that day and I just looked at myself in the mirror and I just thought, I don't know who I am. And I then started this journey. I started the journey then of starting to uncover who I was. Wonderful. And starting to bit by bit, peel back the layers.
Brilliant. So we are going to dive into this. So we're going to go much more deeper with Selena to really look at how this transformation occurred and the journey through it. So thank you so much for firstly pointing out gratitude, which I think we all needed to remember so much. And just that already is a piece of gold for us all. So before we dive in, I want to give you a brief background about Selena and where she is now and who she is. So this is a brief synopsis of Selena before we go deeper. So Selena, you can always comment, Selena, if I get anything wrong, do let me know. So Selena is the founder of The Healing Kitchen, and in her final year of studying nutritional therapy at the College of Naturopathic Medicine. She has also been on an extensive healing journey the past decade, recovering from CFS-ME and Lyme disease, and has a wealth of knowledge and personal experience of functional medicine in practice, but also a deeper understanding of what it takes for the body to heal and come back into balance. She's a mother of 2 teenage boys, lives with her husband in Gerrards Cross, where she incorporates all she practices into her everyday life, and has learned how to transform herself and her life to overcome disease. She loves yoga, nature, meditation, dancing, cooking, and her 2 gorgeous kittens, which are gorgeous. They really are. So lovely. Thank you so much, Selena, for being here. Now, there's so much there that I want to dive into straight away, and I know we're limited for time. So what I feel really called, the first thing I feel really called to ask you is, what is Lyme disease?
Okay, so Lyme disease, which I only actually found out I had a couple of years ago. I was first diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, or ME, when I was 18. I was bedridden for a couple of years, post-glandular fever. So I was very ill, to the extent where I was, had to be pushed in a wheelchair through the airport. And yeah, I was completely bedridden. And it's only been on my interest with healing and understanding and finding out the root cause that I've gone a lot deeper. And it was only 2 years ago I found out I had Lyme disease. It's caused by a bacterial infection. The bacteria is Borrelia, and which is transmitted mainly through ticks. So this time of year, there's a lot of ticks in the grass. Actually, I don't know exactly when I was bitten. There is belief it possibly could be transmitted through mosquitoes or other insects, but ticks are the main carriers. I was told recently, I saw a healer, that I was 14 when I was bitten. Okay. So it would make sense actually. But what it does is the rate of people suffering with this, especially in the UK and in the southeast of England and Scotland mainly, is increasing. And whether that's to do with climate change and things, there are more ticks carrying this, our immune systems are more dysfunctional, but it actually, it completely pulls the immune system down, and it spirals very deep, very deep into underneath biofilms within the body. But it actually can dysregulate so many parts of the body. So it can dysregulate the whole hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal axis, causing sleep disorders, anxiety issues, hormone imbalances, gut dysregulation, but it also can become neurological. So it can get through the blood-brain barrier and affect cognition as well. So I've seen people, seriously ill with this, properly wheelchair bound. I think I've been very lucky. Through my healing and things, and I now believe I have it in remission as well. So I don't know if that answers, but it's a little bit about it.
Absolutely. Wow. Okay, so that's quite a big impact to have on so many different ways. Because I think the key thing which I'm thinking there is, okay, so you're impacted physically, you're impacted mentally, emotionally, and obviously that's going to affect how you live day-to-day life. So for you, Selena, experiencing that, what would you say was the greatest obstacle, the challenge, or what you struggled with most about Lyme disease?
Well, of course, most of my life I didn't know I had that. I knew I had chronic fatigue, and energy fatigue has always been, it's kind of ruled my life. And I always say to people, within the community of other people who suffer from this kind of chronic complex illness, and I would put Lyme in that umbrella. There's so many things, mold toxicity, immune dysregulation, things where people can't see. But people have got chronic illness, and I think that it's often very challenging understanding and getting to the root of what the problem is. And unfortunately, with some of these things, it's almost like one thing brings something down and then everything else comes to the party. Yeah. So you very rarely meet somebody who's just got one of these things in isolation. They tend to then have a whole barrage of things. And I think it's extremely challenging because it's not seen. And of course, I feel a great empathy towards anybody who has chronic complex, any illness, but especially chronic complex illnesses that aren't seen. Most people go into an autoimmune state, because I think what it brings is, obviously it has its own physical issues which aren't seen. And a lot of those are mood, anxiety issues, sleep issues, gut issues, which obviously then lead to lots of other things, weakened immune system, there's neurological problems. So there's a whole host of things. But actually what I see, and I've really seen in very recent years, because I'm really taking a lot of time, especially in this last year, to understand what it takes to really heal, and why some people recover and some people get in a stuck pattern and never recover. And what I see is there is so much pain and trauma associated with chronic illness. Mm-hmm. So there may be pain and trauma that's happened in your life and other things, but long-term illness creates that as well. And that's really tough, because I think people don't feel understood. Yeah. And trying to release from that, yeah, and to shift out of that, victim energy, yeah, that pain and suffering. And there's also, I think, from that, there are actual physical dysregulations in the body. So things like, we have a vagus nerve, often called our wandering nerve, that comes from our hypothalamus throughout our whole entire body. And that affects our, people talk about the fight or flight, or yeah, the rest and restore, so your sympathetic or parasympathetic nervous system. And if it's constantly triggered on alert, because you're in a suffering kind of place or through trauma, your body can't heal. And so it's not just a case of, do this, this, and this, do follow this protocol, follow that protocol, and get well. You have to turn yourself inside out like a sock. You have to not just deal with past traumas and events in your life, but the suffering and pain of chronic illness as well, which is like a catch-22. So that's really tough, I think, for people. And some people don't get there. It's a real struggle.
Yeah. Okay. So transformation, you've obviously gone really deep into transformation. So there was something within you that made you look outside of the box for answers. And whether this happened consciously or subconsciously, but something has asked you to find solutions, obviously, that weren't available to you. Do you feel satisfied today with the solutions that you have found in comparison to what was presented to you as a way of helping you cope with the situation you found yourself in?
Well, I have, with my health, I have honestly seen leading experts around the world in terms of, doctors were never able to help me, so mainstream doctors weren't able to help. So I knew I had to go through naturopathic routes. I was brought up, my mother was very into homeopathy.
Okay. Why do you feel they weren't able to help?
Well, I think that in terms of chronic fatigue and ME, there is no medical answer right now. So the only thing that was offered actually to me at the time was things like pace your life, literally learn to pace, which I did for many, many years, and antidepressants. And actually I knew I wasn't depressed. I knew that, it's really tough when you wake up and you feel really crap every day. It's really tough, but I knew I wasn't depressed. So I chose not to go down that route. But even in seeing naturopathic doctors, functional medicine doctors, which I've learned so much, and obviously that's the area that I'm moving into. What I feel is it has to work. That's just one part of the healing process. It has to work with the emotional, spiritual, dealing with pain, trauma, transformation. The two cannot be independent. And that is a huge learning curve for me, because when I because I got sick again 10 years ago. I had another complete relapse post a virus and was bedridden, and it took me 2 years to kind of get up again. And initially, I was like, okay, I know I'm going the naturopathic route. What's the protocol? Tell me what supplements to take. Tell me how to fix my diet. Give me the answers. I was really impatient. I just wanted the answer. And do you know what? I actually wouldn't. I would have pushed myself so hard. And I did. I remember going through, they call it a Herx reaction, when you detox so hard and too fast, and the body can't keep up. I was just like, just give it to me. I just want to hit this. I just want to get through this. Like, how long is it going to take? And with time, and we're almost a decade on from then, I've had to learn patience. I've had to learn you can only heal at the rate your body's ready to heal at.
Yes,
there was so much, actual cleansing. Of course, there was a lot of healing I've had to do, my gut, my immune system, and so many different things. But actually, for me, it's been more latterly where I've really understood the real letting go, and a lot of that's been through the work with Fierce Focused Feminine, the real, really understanding what my fears are, really purging as well. And also, I've never had a faith. I've always wanted a faith, and I've always been quite envious of people who've had that kind of support, because most of this journey I've been doing, yes, with lots of people's help, but I've been guiding myself. I've really felt very isolated, and the spirituality that now is strengthening in me, and this last year, I've taken a year out of my studies to really deep dive into why do some people heal, why do others, and looking at transformation and looking at energy within the body and energy clearing. This has really been like the unlocking. This has been like the key that's really unlocked for me. And actually giving me, I feel I'm still at the tip of the iceberg, and I'm just uncovering this, but already for me the gifts it's given me has just been beyond what I would have imagined, and my health is just really strengthened.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And that's been so beautiful to see, and just watching you start to move into that place, which again, I really want to get through with FFF is so many people do not even know it exists, that there is a space within us that has light, love, power, potential. It doesn't matter what you call it, whether you call it creativity, God, but there is a space within us that has huge power to heal every aspect of our being, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And so many people are waking up to this. So spiritually, we call that the awakening process, the awakening journey. We start to realize that we are much more than just physical beings. And when we really start to explore that spiritual side, there's huge power in our spiritual being, huge, which we've been neglecting. So thank you for sharing that, because that really highlights that power that you've stepped into, you're starting to own, you're starting to embody as well. And I always see that. I see that beaming out. It's like a light is suddenly turned on and it starts to beam out through everybody. And you really have allowed that light to beam, but you've been so honest and raw and real with, I have fears, but I'm not going to let my fears stop me from facing the emotions or what's uncomfortable or some of those beliefs or limiting thoughts and behaviors that I've had or been conditioned with. And I'm going to do the inner work. And it takes a huge courageous soul to go, okay, this isn't about plastering around the external, the physical. The real work is the inner work, and that's what you've rolled up your sleeves and you've just flown in there and gone, right, I'm going to do it. So what, Selena, would you say, as we're diving in so deep, would you be willing to share with us what you feel was your greatest, I call it on the floor moment? And we all have them. We all have a period or a time in our life where the universe goes, right, I'm going to pull that rug right from beneath you. And we can just go, what on earth is happening? That's the wake up. Have you?
Well, I think, yeah, I think for me, it was when I got sick latterly, which was probably about 8 years ago. And, you know, looking back, I hadn't been in a good place for a very long time. And I was adrenally exhausted. I'd been running on empty. All the signs were there, all the signs. You know, I was probably hitting paracetamols every day. I, you know, was numbing, toxic living. I was, you know, little children, exhausted. But I picked up this virus in the States, very nasty virus, not dissimilar to COVID actually. And I had terrible fever and I came back and I didn't get up. I did not get up. And it was just like when I was 18. So I was completely bedridden. It was like somebody had pulled the plug, completely pulled the plug. And it's very difficult to describe. It's not like a tiredness when you've just had a baby, you know, or you've been working through the night flat out for a week. You know, it's something much deeper. And luckily, because I'd had it before, I recognized it. I was like, oh my God, this is like it happened before. And I was really scared because I had 2 children that were quite young. And I was like, I've got to get well. And my whole body ached. I had pain within my body. My joints were inflamed. I couldn't think. I couldn't sleep. I was in a racy state, but just exhausted. All the classic ME kind of symptoms. And that year was really dark for me. It was really dark because nobody understands. Nobody gets it. And there's a lot of stigma attached to, you know, it's hard because there are certain, you know, if you've got cancer or you've got, you know, people understand it. Yeah. And even kind of mental health, I think people are starting to understand that. Yes. But there's a stigma and there's a lack of understanding. And I felt that really really acutely around me. And so much of my life had been, in the recent years, had been masking. It had been, you know, exterior wise, I appeared to have it all, I guess. So they were really tough times, and I felt incredibly low. I didn't even have the energy to talk to people. So I felt very isolated. Even if I had, I don't think people would have understood. So I think that was, and turning that ship, I always think of it like that. Turning the ship when you're in a place where you're feeling that ill is really tough, because, you know, it's hard not to drop into a victim place. It's hard not to feel sorry for yourself. And you've got people going, well, just go and meditate and do yoga, you know, or go and, you know, I mean, I started, I knew I had to address things really quickly. And I started with neuroplasticity. I went on a course called the Lightening Process, and it was changing your thoughts. And that's where I started. And actually, it was the first time I got an insight quite how awful my thoughts were. Not about necessarily everyone else, about me, you know.
Absolutely.
How berating I was permanently about myself. You know, I never realized, because I never listened to that voice, but it was there all the time. You know, somebody didn't answer me when I waved across the supermarket, and I think, oh my God, I've upset that person. Oh God, they don't like me. What have I done? What, you know, they probably just didn't see me, but for a day, you know. And of course, when you're trying to preserve energy, it's not just lying down and resting. You've got to deal with the negative chatter in your head.
Yeah, huge energy leak. And I think this is really important. So again, audience, please take that on board, because we often think energy or lack of energy is just food. It's just us working too hard. And one of the real spiritual teachings is understand energy. Energy, yes, we get it from food. Energy is not just from food, it's also from the people around you, but mostly it's from your own internal dialogue. There can be no energy, prana, entering the physical body if your mind is blocking the source through which energy flows into your body. So Selena, I think that's a really huge message for people to understand, the power of leakage of our vital source, of our vital energy from our own destructive thoughts, which most of us are so unaware of. So were there specific tools or rituals you had to start to support you in, firstly, identifying some of your thoughts, but secondly, how do you do that with love and compassion?
Well, and this, you know, this has been the tough bit of my journey. This has been the really tough bit, because, you know, the food and you know, the healing and all of that kind of stuff, you know, that was easy. You know, you're just like, if you're really sick, you would change your diet, you know, pretty quickly, and even your lifestyle. So, you know, I had to stop. You know, I ran on adrenaline. You know, I was at the gym every day, fast, achieve. Even in my motherhood, I was like that, keeping up with everybody.
Yeah,
I was forced to stop. It was a blessing. I look back now, and I honestly believe that my journey and what I went through was to prepare me for this time now. I honestly believe that. And it will, you know, if I'd have carried on like that, it would have been something way more serious in the future. But yeah, that course I did, that first course, was my first insight. So that was, you know, real neuroplasticity, you know, really changing those neuro pathways, literally forcing them. So the horse steers the other way in the grass field, and the track then changes. You know, it's really, it was that. I remember meeting you at that time. I remember us having a very in-depth session, because we didn't then meet for about 8 years, but I remember I was really struggling at the time with, there were things I was angry about in my past.
Yes.
There was pain that I felt. And I was like, but I feel that. I don't know how to release that, you know. Actually, you know, I was constantly dipping in and out of spiritual books, of trying to understand the mind-body connection. But I was doing it really the hard way, actually. I was doing it the hard way, and I was still very focused on, you know, getting well and what the answer is, and who almost outsourcing the problem, you know, seeing the top naturopaths, having the best acupuncture, you know, you name it, I've done it, you know. I have tried every single different kind of naturopathic type of modality out there, and they're all amazing, but not one thing fixes anything, you know. It is a complete full approach. And in this last year, actually, I've become very involved. I started seeing a pranic healer, and that was only about 18 months ago, and really starting to address energy blockages within me. And actually I've now trained in pranic healing as well, which I don't know what really led me down that path, but I was really interested in learning more about energy healing. I was aware of there is something else involved in healing, like prana or whatever you want to call it, but really understanding what those blockages are. And in fact, I had an incredible experience just a few weeks ago. I went to see a healer, and I've always suffered with really poor lymphatic flow in my body. I have had times where I've been overweight. I haven't been in many years since I cleaned up my life, but I've always had really puffy ankles and puffy legs, which don't really go with the rest of my body. And actually had lots of things like, you know, this is really embarrassing to say, but I have terrible fungal infections in my feet, and things don't heal in my legs. And he told me that my lymphatic system, which is very linked to your immune system, in my legs it was like jelly, nothing was flowing. And he said it was my chakras, my sex chakras, that were completely blocked. And that had happened from trauma, and, you know, much younger in my life, and that nothing could flow. And he did a, you know, exercise where he unblocked this, and just in the last few weeks, the difference I'm feeling in my legs is unbelievable. I mean, it's really kind of slightly blown me away, actually.
Brilliant. There is so much power, and it brings me so much joy to see so many people starting to understand and not see it as woohoo. I think it's been labeled, so if we can't see it, if it's not scientifically proven, it's woohoo. But we're really starting to really see the metaphysical side now, and starting to understand, in actual fact, we are energy. We totally understand that, and we can manipulate that energy in a positive direction. It is influenced by us, and we have that power to influence it. And I think what you've really pointed out is there are so many guides and teachers who, when you open up and set that intention to heal and transform, you will meet the right teachers and guides at the right time who will just nudge you into finding your own power to heal yourself. And I think this is one of the real key teachings, whether it's energy healing, transformation, belief work, pranic healing, is reminding that individual that they have the healer within themselves. And this, especially for women right now, are really needing to hear this message, that they have that power and they can claim that power back. So how do you feel you started stepping in to claiming everything you've learned from your teachers, your guides, your support networks, to going, I can do that. I have that gift too. I have that ability. What made you move from I'm the one being treated to No, I'm being called for something more than the one who's being treated here.
Hmm. Yeah, and that was really well put, actually, Davinder. You know, I that was, you know, really, really well, well explained, and it's so true. And I haven't really kind of thought, oh yes, well, when did that happen? But it did happen. You're right, and I probably only fairly recently. You know, I think you obviously, you know, going and studying has given me a lot of confidence in you know what I'm learning. You know, I had to go and do biomedicine as a foundation. I didn't have a science background, so that was really challenging for me. But I started realizing, you know, I'm seeing people, and actually, yeah, yeah, of course, they may know more than me. They've practiced for longer, but I know myself. I know my own body. I know, and nobody else is going to have the understanding, the background, or the interest in me that I have. You know,
Yes.
in terms of getting well. But I think that, so there was that realization. But actually, I think it's been very much, you know, this has been a big journey of mine in this last year. This year, you know, I say a year off studying, but actually I've actually done way more this last year than I ever thought I was going to do. But it's been really, it's been uncovering and getting to the root of the self-love and self-worth issues.
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, everything comes back to that, and you have to believe that you're worthy of health and being well. You know, but not just that, you have to love yourself enough to want that. And actually I can see this because I've had the opportunity in this last year to spend a lot of time with people with, you know, with chronic illness, a lot of people. And it's been really interesting, but I can see the longer people are in that, actually it almost becomes an identity. And it's a hard thing to say, because of course everyone wants to get well, but maybe people don't think they deserve to be well. I mean, I actually look back and I'm not sure, not just with my health, but, you know, I've known inside I'm a capable person, but I've always lived small, always. It's been much easier to hide.
Yeah.
And actually I think that suited me, and that's been a big awareness. And actually, you know, really trying to understand and address why is that, and what's at the root of that. And of course there's a lot of fear, of course there is. And but also I think actually it's inner self-love. It seems to all come back to that, I think.
A huge key, which once it's opened, it starts to unlock all the other areas with so much more ease. Like you were saying, you were, you know, really again using that energy of I want to know it all, and we can still take that energy into everything, even the healing, because I know I did when I first started healing. I still took the energy of push, do it all overnight, get it fixed, until I realized, no, it's who I'm being that is causing the problems that are arising. I need to change who I be. If I change who I be, I then become something different, and it cause and the effect. So Selena, for somebody who's watching this, who's thinking, okay, I'm really struggling at the moment, it could be any disease, it could be ME, it could be Lyme, it could be cancer, it could be fibromyalgia, it could be any disease, but somebody who's thinking, okay, you were in that position and now you have your own business, the Healing Kitchen. And for somebody who's thinking, how on earth am I going to get from where I am now to creating my own business? Is that even possible for me? What would you say are the key things you needed that allowed you to unfold and to start to open up and see that there's something within you that's more than the disease, that there was something within you that was wanting to come out and is growing and growing and growing. What did you need to allow that to happen? What would you
That's a
like?
big that's a big question. And I think that, you know, we talked about self-love, and that's obviously a really, really big one, but I think there's also this is really hard when someone's sick because you want the answers, but I think there's an amount of letting go, of surrendering. And interestingly, I mean, I come across a lot of people who have got much younger people, and they remind me of how I was, you know, in their late 20s, even early 30s, and they've got sick overnight, you know, and they, you know, they're pushing and they want the answers. And I think you have to learn patience. You have to learn to surrender. You have to let your body really rest. And that's not just lying down watching TV, or, you know, that's letting go and surrendering. I think there's a certain amount you need to learn how to properly surrender. And, you know, that's been a very new thing for me. I mean, you know, love the book by Michael Singer, you know, The Surrendered Experiment. And at times where I've done that, my healing just accelerates. But also there's a lot of in healing, letting go of what's not serving you, you know. And there is, and that can be all sorts of things. So, you know, a lifestyle, you know, people. For me, a big one was alcohol. That was really big. I had such a emotional link with alcohol. You know, it had been my support, my friend for a long time. So all sorts of things, and also letting go of what you thought life was going to be, you know, letting go of what your vision. And there is a grief in that. There is definitely a grief in letting go of all these different things that you have to purge, and you have to feel. And actually, for me, that started before I got sick 8 years ago. That was more like 12 years ago. I began that grieving and feeling. I began that stripping back the layers of the onion. So I had experienced that. And it's tough, and hopefully, you know, people will have somebody to support them, but it's hard because often you don't.
I was just going to ask that. In many cases, and I know especially with many of the clients I've seen, most people, when they start this journey, it's not the norm for most people. It's definitely not the majority of people who understand transformation and healing and energy. So they can find themselves really alone or feel very isolated and separated. And of course, that is toxic. So what would you advise? And firstly, what would you advise? And secondly, what was your experience of where do I go for support? Who do I reach out to? What is available to me if I'm going, okay, I want to get from where I am towards where Selena's heading. I want that too, but I'm on my own and my husband doesn't get it. My children don't get it. My brothers and siblings, my siblings don't get it. Where do they start?
Well, yeah, and I think support is really key. It's tough on your own. It's really tough. And yes, you can be surrounded by people, but that's right. I mean, it's very hard for anybody to really understand it. And I think that, you know, having the right support is crucial. I mean, for me, FFF has been a massive support in the last year. And it's been a wonder, not just FFF, but the Lighthouse as well, together have been, you know, a really big part of my support, and meeting other women who, it's not that we've openly discussed a lot about our different journeys, but you can see because everyone's real and everyone's unmasked and everyone is non-judgmental, which is very rare because, you know, we all go out into the world and, you know, live in a place where, you know, you put your mask on. And obviously when you're suffering with illness, you can't do that. That's, I think, another thing that's very hard. You can't do that, but you know, it's what women do. We all do it, you know, and so it's tough when you want to break that down. So I think those kind of, you know, support networks like you're offering are, you know, are wonderful. And I don't think there is enough of the emotional, spiritual, transformational support, which has to go, you know. Yes, I think that, you know, it is important also to get to the root of what's caused the illness. You know, there is often bacterial infections, viral infections, you know, gut support, which then, you know, affects in the immune system and blah, blah, blah. And I think, you know, working with somebody who can help you understand that, and it goes alongside. So I think the two things, you know, go alongside, and somebody who understands healing as well. Yeah. And it is often really tough to find that. I mean, you know, I actually had like a healing protocol, you know, I built up. It took me probably 5 years to uncover what was at the root. Yeah. You know, and alongside all of this goes the spiritual, emotional transformation that runs along everything. But you know, there was kind of you know, my detoxification that had to happen, you know, from all sorts of toxicity I had, you know, and there was the viral bacterial, and there was the gut health, and there was, you know, all these different things. And I basically had this very complex, you know, kind of healing protocol. And that's, you know, that's definitely something in my vision. It's not just being a you know, I think a lot of people don't actually understand what nutritional therapy really is, but you know, you have the ability to be able to run a lot of tests to really understand what's going on with underlying root of causes. And so often when people are experiencing, you know, mood disorders, hormone dysregulation, gut symptoms, you know, insomnia, brain fog, all these things, there is something underlying. So working with somebody on that, but also I would like to incorporate what I've learned in my healing experience and journey to actually also provide like a health coaching for people as well. So that, you know, because in my mind, this is something really, you know, medical care, somebody should be able to offer and say, okay, I can't be a primary carer, I'm not a doctor, but to be able to pull it all together and help, you know, give these are the different areas that you need support in, you know, and here's how to go about it. Because when you're sick, it's really tough. You can't even think, you know, and when you're trying to research this stuff and you don't know where to go, it's really tough. So I pieced that together, but a lot of it you know, and I worked with some really great people, but I didn't have one person that could help me kind of pull all that together. That's definitely a vision, I think, something that's really needed, and especially, you know, in this time that we're now entering, post-COVID. And I mean, I saw something the other day in one of the science journals I get, you know, they're predicting thousands of people, you know, if not millions, having severe ME, chronic fatigue type symptoms post this virus. Okay. And it's something we're not even thinking about at the moment, you know. Yeah. And people are going to have to wake up to health. They're going to have to wake up to supporting themselves. And, you know, all these things are just really vital, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so for somebody that's watching that is completely new to healing, transformation, just the word naturopathic medicine, they will possibly be thinking, well, what does that really mean, and when would it benefit me? What would it benefit? Is it specific to certain illnesses, diseases, conditions? What advice would you give to somebody who wants to go the alternative route, wants to learn more about naturopathic medicine or how it could help them, what would be the simplest introduction to naturopathic medicine?
So a really nice visual I think of is you've got a goldfish and a goldfish bowl, okay? And the goldfish, because people have put chemicals in and all sorts of stuff in the water, the goldfish has got sick, okay? So I guess in allopathic medicine, you would give the goldfish some medicine to make it better. Whereas in naturopathic medicine, the principle is that you clean up the environment, you change the water, you clean up and give the fish what it needs, because the body has the innate ability to heal. It has the ability to be in what we call homeostasis, in balance. And if, and actually the belief is, you know, this goes back to in the 1800s or so, in the early 1900s, what was his name in France? Oh, let me come back to that. Bouchon, who basically believed that, and it was him and Pasteur who invented penicillin, who basically believed that if you have the right environment for the body to live, so you've got clean air, you've got clean water, you've got the right stuff, the right terrain within the body, viruses and bacteria will not live in the body. It will not stay. And so, and what's happened in the world today is, if you think of it in like scales, we have got so much that we're dealing with. You know, we have got toxicity from all sorts of places. You know, we've got, you know, not just from our food, but our environment, what we're putting on our skin. We've got, you know, so many more viruses, bacteria. Our immune systems are depleted. You know, we've got, you know, poor quality food and toxins that are coming from that. We've got stress. You know, we're not sleeping. So the scale tipping. And, you know, what we need to do, and obviously the good stuff like, you know, yoga, meditation, good food, clean relationships, is all the good stuff, but it's out of balance.
Yeah.
And so naturopathic medicine is really about bringing the body back into its balance. You know, removing first the stuff that's making it ill, and then, you know, healing the body. But, you know, sometimes that, because we're so out of balance often when we get sick, the body's really, when it's got to a point where you can't think, where you've got digestive issues, where you can't sleep, your body's really tipped, you know, because it's been giving signs from so offhand, so through
Just cut
you know, that might be through certain ways.
Yeah, we just missed the last bit of your sentence there, slightly cut out.
Okay. I think I was just saying that, you know, the body gets out of balance, and so you know, with naturopathic medicine, it's about removing first of all the things that are making the body sick, and that's really important. You've got to address that.
Yeah, and there's
and then, you know, really when you get to that, I don't know if you can hear me, Davinder. I think there's a little bit of
yeah, there's a little bit of turbulence, but we're back.
Oh, I'm back.
So addressing that, is this, I think it's really important to address that. And I think this is what society is now really starting to wake up and understand, that we really have to address the whole mind, body, soul connection, and understanding the impact of our environment externally, and also the environment within us. And so we're starting to wake up and understand we need to deal with the cause. We can't keep plastering over the cause, because the cause is, the wound is still there. The wound is getting more and more raw, more and more visible, the wound is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's just wanting to burst out of human beings because the wound's so big. And most human beings are at bursting point with, I cannot continue with this level of toxicity. And I think that can be scary for people with, where do I start clearing this up? When we start to open up and go, okay, let me have a clear look at what's really going on here, what's really going on, it can be scary for people. So the Healing Kitchen, where does this fit in with the naturopathic medicine, with your vision? What is your vision with the Healing Kitchen and what it could bring to helping people solve some of these problems that we're facing and that we're desperate for help and support with?
Well, I think first of all, it was never my idea. This was not a plan. It was never my idea to launch this year. In fact, I don't even know where the name The Healing Kitchen really came from. This is not saying I've, been planning. All I've been focused on is studying and learning. But, I have realized myself that I have a fear of stepping up. My biggest fear, actually, in doing all this studying and all this work was that I was going to get to the end of it next year and not be able to do something about it because I wasn't going to have enough belief in myself. Yeah. So I was really in that place up until just before COVID pandemic. And it was quite surreal what happened because I decided in January to take a month of complete surrender. I've never done that before, like completely let go. And it helped that I just got these 2 little kittens to play with. So I had really tried to put my trust in the universe and to really, none of us knew what was coming. None of us knew then what was about to happen. But we went into the pandemic literally that week before we went into lockdown. I felt this. I actually had been away on a cleansing, few days cleanse. So I'd been doing the surrendering, I'd been cleansing, which I do very regularly. And it was while I was away, I came back and I was like feeling this calling. And I don't know where it was coming from, that I need to step up. Like the world is going into this fear, right? Where people are going into isolation, lockdown, and nobody knows how to deal with this. Nobody's ever had to, loads of people have never really had to think about their health before. And what I realized was actually I've got a lot of tools for this situation. I've lived in isolation. My when you've had chronic illness, you've had to learn to live in isolation to a certain extent. So I had, and not just isolation like we're experiencing now, isolation where nobody understands, where there isn't Zoom calls, where there isn't the world coming to you. So I almost felt like everyone had entered my world. And I was like, yes, I've learned the tools to get through in that. So that was the first thing. And the second thing is, I realized that, for the first time ever, people were starting to think about there is something out there that potentially could be life-threatening to me. Now, most people have never lived in that fear of their health. It's totally alien. Yeah. And also how do I support my immune system? What do I do? Because you turn on the news and the only thing they were telling you to do is wash your hands. There was no other advice out there. And so I'm not saying there was nothing, but there was no other real clear messages. And so what happened was I just thought I need to start sharing from the kitchen, because suddenly everyone's got to cook for themselves. I mean, loads of people I know, they eat out most of the time, or, they go down and buy a kind of semi-ready meal from the supermarket. So I was like, I need to start sharing some of this stuff. It actually forced me to just get up. And I can be a bit of a perfectionist. I definitely am uncomfortable in the grey. I am very, it's a real uncomfortable area for me, and so it forced me right into the grey. You know, I stuck the camera on one day and I showed people how to make a healthy, no sugar, cacao and date, you know, gooey bar, you know, because everyone was looking for that fix, you know, because they weren't getting it in other areas. And I stuck it on my Facebook page to share to some friends. And I was inundated. People were like, oh my God, that was so great. So, you know, I loved watching you in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And I was amazed at how it felt really quite natural. So that's really where it started. And then I suddenly thought, I have so much to share.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's really not been very long that, you know, I set this up, I turned it around really quickly. And you know, now I've gone on to Instagram, and you know, I just got almost 600 followers, which I'm amazed. I just,
Brilliant.
you know, it's incredible in a couple of months. So yeah, so it's all very new, but the idea behind it for me is to help educate people, to inspire and empower, you know, particularly women, to and yes, potentially it might be people who are really healing, but we all need to heal. We all need to heal right now, even if you're not sick. We all need to take responsibility for our health going forward. You know, we're about to all go out into the world with a virus that could deplete our immune systems. It's our responsibility to start looking after ourselves. But what I wanted to do with it was also incorporate the other messages of transformation, of heart healing, of soul connection, and not just be a cooking demonstration, not just be nutritional therapy education, because there's a lot of that. But my hope was to really encompass everything. And obviously I'm not fully qualified yet. I graduate next year, but you know, the nourishes the mind, body and soul. So that's, you know, that's become my vision.
Yeah, and I think that's why it has so much power, because this is what people are really needing right now at this time, because it's a place where you've got incredible recipes, so we can go there for resources for the recipes, but it's educational as well, and that is a part which usually is separated. And so to really have all that combined with the element of spirituality as well, with the belief systems, with mindsets, it just feels it has a really wonderful grounded balance. So thank you for that. And I think anybody watching this channel will absolutely adore what you're putting together. So I can't wait to see in a year's time where you're going to be flying with this. So there's so many questions I could ask you, and I'm really cautious we've run out of time. So I'm going to just shrink a few questions down to complete with. Now, one of them is, what belief have you managed to ditch that was no longer serving you? And what have you replaced that with? What's the new belief? What was a really big belief that perhaps you were really unconscious of, and then through your transformational work you've gone, oh my God, that belief was causing that, and that, and you feel you have confidently overcome that belief and started steering into a new belief?
I think probably that the belief of not feeling that I was good enough. So I think that, and that probably stopped me doing so many things. I think that has been you know, a big one to overcome.
Yeah, and I'm so pleased you said that, because obviously most of my work is belief systems, energy, and the spiritual side, and that's the solar plexus, that's the gut. So that core belief is a belief which is a soul lesson held within the solar plexus. And when we don't feel we're good enough, it's the gut that is impacted. So that feels like it's been a real soul lesson that you've gone, I'm rocking with this. I'm going to graduation school with this as a soul. So really beautiful. So have you stepped into a positive affirmation, or do you feel you have replaced that with a new belief? Is there a tool you use to help you keep moving into that space of I am good enough, when the little monkey mind, because it will come back and say, oh, well, the next leap you're not good enough for.
Well, there's been, especially in the last year, there has been certain tools that I've used. I think affirmations have been really important. And in fact, the first one that I really worked on, which I guess is all linked, was I think when you don't feel good enough, or you're in fear, it's so easy to close your heart to protect yourself. And I was aware that I would do this, not deliberately. It's like, it wasn't like I was cold-hearted, but I would not live from that place. I was fine when I was on my own or with people that I trust, but I would say to myself, it's the will of my heart to stay open.
Yeah.
And especially if I was going to go in a situation where I would feel, oh my God, they're going to judge me, I'm not good enough, I would say that before. Yeah. And just think, no, I'm going to out there, this is who I am. So I also it's not an affirmation, but I do have a short meditation every morning called the Twin Hearts, and which is under the Institute of Pranic Healing. And that is a beautiful, I think of it like an emotional shower every morning. It's a clearing, and it's gratitude, for many years since I got sick. But I love the fact that it's not just what I'm grateful for in my life, but it's actually giving out love and peace and a prayer to the world as well. And there's the thing, I think and I think we all are by nature as women, we're all givers. We all want to serve. We all have that within us, perhaps some more than others. But it's very hard when you're trying to look after yourself and feed yourself to give, and often you can't, so to this prayer is wonderful because you feel like you're really serving and giving, and I think that's incredibly healing.
Good, lovely, thank you. The Twin Hearts is absolutely beautiful. It's one of my favorites too. So what would you say is your biggest fear right now, or one you are starting to open up and look at?
I think that I've got to get through my last final year. That's very, real. I've got to get my head back into studying. I don't know if I'm fearful of that, but I've seen what's possible, and I really want to, I've begun, but I have to take that leap. I have to take that leap, and that's scary.
Yeah.
That's scary because I know there's going to be a point where I have to let go of a lot of things, that I've held on to, but I know that only in that will true freedom come. So I think that, that's my biggest fear right now.
Yeah.
But I'm also very excited.
Yeah. And that's a really beautiful place to be when there's fear. I always say, if there's terror, you're trying to jump too far, too quickly. Whereas if there's fear with excitement, then that is your soul calling you and your soul leading you, not the ego. Because when it's the ego, we tend to overjump, and we will ignore the level of fear and terror. But when it's the soul and we feel that excitement and that fear, we also understand, that is my soul asking me to lean into my power. So beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, so I have 3 quick questions which I'd like you to answer as quickly as possible without any thought. If you could ask anyone in the world one question and they had to tell you the truth, they could not lie, who would it be?
So you've frozen, Davinder.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes.
Okay. So if you could ask anyone in the world one question and they had to tell you the truth, they could not lie, who would it be?
Oh, goodness. Oh, it'd probably be my father, actually. I think it would be my father. Yeah.
And what would the question be?
Well, really, probably kind of what he really thinks. What's really, what's really going on underneath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have that.
I mean, I don't think it would be a specific question as such. I think it would more be really wanting to know what's in his heart.
Yes, I have that a lot, in particular from women. So yeah, I get that. I totally get that. If you could eradicate one problem, Selena, in today's society, what would it be and why?
Well, I mean, an obvious one for me, because I'm so passionate about it, would be poor food. You know, I do think this is, I mean, I'm really worried. In fact, it's today that the agricultural bill is being discussed in the House of Lords. You know, and our food quality could potentially overnight change. You know, we're very lucky because we've been protected by EU law. But you know, I think if we could, you know, be eating good quality whole foods dictated by the food industries that are out there, you know, and even the pharmaceutical industries to a degree as well, I think that would go a long way towards changing our health. So that's obviously something that, you know, is a matter close to my heart.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Last question. What 3 things do you most want for women?
I think to have peace, you know, inner peace, self-love, and connection.
Yeah. Thank you, Selena. It's been such a joy spending this time with you, and I know our listeners are going to get so much out of today's session. It was educational, but it's also heart-led, and there's so many bits, so much insight, which I'm sure they will be able to weed out through our journey today. So thank you. Now, I know many of them will want to connect with you. They'll want to stay connected. So how can they stay connected with you?
So I'm on Instagram. It's at The Healing Kitchen by Selena, Selena Selina, at the Healing Kitchen by Selena, and I'm on Facebook also, The Healing Kitchen by Selena. So they're the 2 best ways to connect with me.
Wonderful. So I really, really advise you all to reach out, connect with Selena, because she really is sharing some really powerful information. And I'm definitely going to be doing some of those recipes. I've been checking them out, and I'm going to spend the weekend going through some of those recipes you've posted, because they just look amazing and they're just so wholesome. So I'm going
Well, thank you so much as well, Davinder. It's I've learned so much from you over this last year, and thank you very much for everything that you're doing and that you've given as well.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. So, before we complete, Selena, is there some words of wisdom, an affirmation, a quote, or a power word you would like to leave the audience today?
Well, I think if there's a power word, it would be harmony right now. Yeah. Harmony. I think that's really, really needed. We're all needing to find that in the world right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Selena. Thank you so much. So I would like to leave you all with the message today, which I really feel from Selena. I feel she's really exuded that, is never let anything or anyone dim your light. So thank you, Selena. Thank you for allowing us to learn.
Thank you, Davinder.
My pleasure. A joy to learn from you. And for those of you that feel you would love a sisterhood, a community of heart-centered women who can hold a really safe space for you to heal emotionally, mentally, physically, do come join us. We would love to hold you with love and see you grow and step into your light and become who you're truly meant to be as well. Come join us in Fierce Focus Feminine. Details on the website, details and the links for Selena's information and FFF will be below. So we'll look forward to seeing you soon, and I'm excited about seeing you next month with our next live podcast. Until then, lots of love. Namaste. Take care. Bye bye.